Hello everyone, my name is Irina Tkachuk, I'm the top artist and the founder of the permanent makeup studio T-Lab. Finally, our long-awaited video about the lash line is being released today, and Ksenia, our model with wonderful eyes, will help me with that. By the way, the eyebrows were also made in our studio and they have already healed up. The main procedure and the touch-up were made by our artist Anastasia. Today I'm going to tell you about the main principle that I use while working in the zone of lash line space. I will show you the way I work and the points you should pay attention to and which nuances will help you to fill in the lash line space. Today we will make not a simple lash line, but a fluffy one. Nowadays this trend is extremely popular, that's why I think that this procedure will become and will be topical for a long time. Our procedure begins with processing the zone on which we are going to work now. I'm taking chlorhexidine and a cotton pad, and I'm moistening it. And then we close the eyes and wipe the zone carefully, even if there are no cosmetics. If there are any cosmetics, of course you remove it with the help of micellar water. After that, use chlorhexidine or green soap in order to completely clean the zone where the permanent will be made. Then we should apply anesthesia. For the primary anesthesia, I use PMU cream. It is more convenient for me to apply this cream not from a tube, but from a syringe with a trimmed needle. I have told you about it once. Namely, it is a 2 mm syringe, bought at the pharmacy. You just take it and cut the needle, not to have a sharp tip. Fill it with anesthesia and apply it carefully along the eyelash area. I don't get too much into a lash line. I apply it along the edges in this way. I grab the eyelashes a little. Again, I don't get too much there. As anesthesia affects the zone on which it was applied, and a little bit around. Thus, I distributed anesthesia along the ciliary edge to one eye. Likewise, I do the same with the second eye. Namely, tighten the eyelid and scroll it a little in order to see where I apply anesthesia. We are warning the client not to open the eyes, to lay quietly, and not to scrub the eyes. We don't squint to avoid anesthesia getting on the mucous membrane of the eyes. We are also warning the client that there may be sensations of light burning, warmth and coolness. All these sensations are normal, and it means that anesthesia works and really anesthetizes. I note the time with the help of a timer, and I usually withstand it for about 10-12 minutes. It depends on the girl's sensitivity. If she tells me that she is very sensitive, I can withstand 12-15 minutes, but on average it usually takes about 10 minutes. While our anesthesia is working, I'm preparing the equipment for work. I've made a poll on our main Instagram page, T-Lab, and the link to this video will be in bio, as everyone has asked to show the work on must. I haven't used it for a long time, so we'll try to do it today. We use V-Select needles with the thickness of 0.3 and a good sharpening. Before you ask about the places to buy it, I'm sure that Google will certainly help you guys. It depends on the peculiarities of the country. I don't know where this equipment is sold in your country. I still have 50 on the blog,
Вылет. Прям замерили.
And I'm measuring the needle depth for you.
2 миллиметра.
It's 2 millimeters. And let it be 2 millimeters. In this case, the bandage serves not as a barrier protection, because it seems to me that it cannot be a barrier protection at all. As it lets in moisture, then the equipment is dirty. The main function of it is that the film doesn't slip on the apparatus. This is to say, I put on a bandage and wrap it in a film on top. Later, I throw away the film, and I'm pretty sure that my machine is completely clean after the procedure. When I wrap a machine in a film, you should notice that the cartridge should also be wrapped. If you touch the wire during the work, please put the sleeve on the wire or wrap it in a film. I usually throw over the wire in this way, and I never touch it with my hands. I use Systane for the secondary anesthesia. I have prepared two caps for it. The first one is for a pigment, and the second one is for anesthesia. I fill the cap with several drops of Systane, and then I'll take it with a microbrush. For me, it's great to work with the pigment of BFA. The abbreviation means Beautiful Face Always. It is a black coal. Generally, it is made in Russia, so look for it there. Again, Google can also help you. You enter the keywords BFA, black coal, and look for the places to buy it in your city. I also poured it in the caps for myself and prepared it for work. Then I take a glass and cotton buds, as I wipe with cotton buds when I'm working. And I fill a disposable glass a little with a diluted green soap. The green soap is a concentrate that is used for pigment removal during the operation, namely the removal from the surface and wiping. Roughly speaking, it is diluted 1:10 with water. We use bottled water, and you can use anything you want. Well, it seems to me that I've told you the main organizational issues. Here I also have some cotton pads, as the face gets dirty during the process. I can use them to wipe. But until the anesthesia works, we still have time. The time of exposure is over, and we can carefully remove anesthesia. I remove anesthesia with the help of cotton buds, and I try to wipe it from the eye. And with a little scrolling movements, we remove everything carefully. When I make a lash line, I don't usually draw a sketch as I work in a ciliary row. In this corner, the anesthesia is a little bit in a wrong position, so in order to avoid getting there with the help of a cotton bud, I will take a toothpick with a piece of cotton instead, and remove everything carefully. In order to avoid getting something into the eye, I've moistened it in a green soap and then I wipe everything dry. Clean the eyes, slightly holding the eyelid. Well, we've cleaned out all the primary anesthesia and can proceed with the first approach. Firstly, I collect a small amount of pigment. There is a spout cut on the cartridge. And here it is. So when I make a lash line, I put it in such a way that the long back is behind me and the cut itself is in front of me. And then the needle will be pushed against this wall and will be more fixed. At first, I start working with the middle of the eye and move to the outer corner, and then I come back to the spout. As a result, I move through the zone of the outer lash line twice during the first pass. We put the fingers close to the zone on which we'll work. Namely, I'm working here in the center, then I put my fingers at a stretch in this zone. We don't pull an eye, but you should always twist the eyelids a little. You see that I push it and pull it a little bit up, without opening an eye. Never work in this way, because it's likely that you can get on the lower eyelids, as you don't see it. And when you unroll it, then you clearly see the zone you should dye. Let's go ahead little by little. I feel how I'm clinging to skin. I'm not in a hurry to leave the zone where I'm dyeing. Namely, I use the same principle everywhere, 80 to 20 or 70 to 30. I work in the zone in small areas. I've chosen an area and I'm practically going down half a millimeter, and so little by little I reach it by rearranging my fingers. And you see that I've moved to another area. I don't leave my fingers in the same place, I'm moving around the zone on which I'm working all the time. As you see, I need to go ahead, so I've rearranged my fingers. And one more point you should pay attention to is that your lash line is not in one line, and you see a dense ciliary row. That is to say, you should dye and work through the whole part, and then it will look beautiful. I often see some works where one strip is drawn somewhere between the eyelashes, and the lower and the upper parts of the eyelash are not captured. It is dyed somewhere in the middle, and it looks very bold. I work on a lash line without leaving a skin zone. That is, I've felt the depth that I need, and I'm staying in the skin all the time. The needle is moving in the skin all the time. Turn it if this way isn't convenient to you. If you cannot see the zone, then turn the client's head in order to see the zone that you've dyed clearly. I prefer reaching almost the end of the eyelash. Of course, it depends on the shape of an eye. If an eye is very downturned, you can go up a little earlier in order to visually raise it. Look how I've come to the end. And now what I'm doing? I'm not wiping it. Here's a tear, and I'll dry it with the help of a dry cotton bud. In the same way, I'm gradually returning to the zone where I've already moved. I'm turning the head a little bit, as it is comfortable and clear for me to see what I'm dyeing. I'm lifting the eyelids up, my fingers are moving. These fingers are moving behind the zone where I'm working. Don't forget to rearrange them. Stretch the eyelids a little. I've put them, turned them out, and stretched them a little bit between each other.
Я дошла до того места, где я начинаю.
I've reached the zone where I've started and go ahead to the corner of the eye, to the nose, but the same principle, 80 to 20. I'm working with small strokes from the bottom row to the upper row of eyelashes, the entire zone without leaving the skin. Namely, the lash line zone isn't one strip. It's a certain thickness and density of your eyelashes. That is to say, someone has one row of eyelashes, others can have 2 or 3 rows. Nevertheless, you should pay attention to it and capture all rows of eyelashes.
Напомню, у меня на блоке Critical стоит скорость.
Let me remind you that I have a speed of 5.0 on the critical block.
Работаем иголочкой.
We're working with a V-Select needle in a purple packaging, the thickness of which is 0.3 and it has LT sharpening.
Ребят, я подхожу.
So guys, I'm moving to the corner. What's extremely important for me about the corner? I don't like when there is a clear line. I always try to make it as soft as possible and also when it is extended into the ciliary row. It should begin like eyebrows from the head or from light to dark. So I prefer to begin the lash line or arrows makeup, whatever, in the same way. The position of hands looks like this. I pull out my eyelid with my thumb. As you see, it has already turned out. Then I turn it up with the forefinger in this way, and also without leaving skin, but not so tight. I'm just scratching in order to injure the area before the skin and apply secondary anesthesia. Now I'm not trying to add some pigment or to dye something. Let it batter a little bit undyed. I'll dye everything later when I see the full picture. Once again, I'm going back along the row that I've already passed, namely along that area to the middle of the eye, but fill in those missed spots that you haven't covered more chaotically. Well, the first pass is finished. I'm turning off the machine, taking cotton buds, moistening them in a green soap solution, and carefully wiping off everything we've dyed. The first pass was done successfully. We applied the pigment quite well, but the pigment is not always so tight, so that it shouldn't be significant to you. Namely, I didn't try to dye, I tried to scratch. But if you manage to add some pigment, then it is done successfully. But if you have less pigment after the first pass, then it's okay, as I haven't pressed but carefully moved through. After that, I'm taking a micro brush, carefully twisting the eyelid and applying anesthesia not in a big amount. But it should get in all zones, and it can have a burning sensation of all injured zones. We proceed to the second eye and repeat the same thing. We remove the anesthesia carefully, as if squeezing it out of the eyelashes. In the same way, we begin from the middle, without being in a hurry, and without leaving skin. The angle is 90 degrees. And guys, 90 degrees means a needle to skin ratio, as most people message me that they don't have an angle of 90 degrees. But it depends on the ratio you're looking at. To the couch, to the head, namely I'm working at 90 degrees relatively to the skin zone where I'm working. After turning the head and rearranging the fingers, we are doing the same carefully without being in a hurry. Look, here I'm pulling the zone with the help of my middle finger a little bit. The thumb is here and the forefinger is upper. That is to say, I get such a stretch in 3 directions. Till the end of the eyelashes. I go back along the same section to the middle. And then we're going ahead to the nose. I don't put any pressure on the device, needle, or on the eyelids. I'm just moving the machine and it pierces the skin for me, bringing in the pigment inside. I don't put any additional pressure. The only pressure I put is the stretch of the zone where I'm at the moment. If you don't have a good stretch, equally, you'll not have a good color, as the skin will sag under the needle pressure. Namely, there will be such an injury without adding the pigment. For eyelids, and actually for any other zones, the implications are the following. There will be a small aesthetin and hypertrauma. Generally, nothing good, as hypertraumatization can also give a small residue. Everything is just pushed out together with the crust. I stretched it out with the finger and twisted it here. And remember that the closer to the nose you are, the lighter elaboration we make, so that there is a very soft, gentle beginning here. I'm moving a little bit back to the middle, and not so tightly. Just pick up those sections which I've not picked up for the first time. And I'm going back tightly there, namely from the middle to the end and back. But from this very middle to the nose and back, I only complete some parts dirty, not densely. Well, I've finished and I've made the first pass on the second eye, and I'm moistening cotton buds. If your pigment dries up and you see that you have moved through and the pigment has dried, then moisten a cotton bud in this way, not to rub hard. Because if you rub the eyelash zone, then it will give you a severe swelling. The less you rub the zone, the less you violate it, the better it takes the pigment. And the skin itself will be more grateful to you. Here we also see a good remainder. If you have a little pigment flowing into the eye during the work, nothing awful happens. In the end of the procedure, I recommend you to flush your eyes. You can use Visine or any other drops just to flush the eyes. And generally nothing else, because it's not dangerous. Aren't you afraid? No, I'm not. If I were you, probably I would die of fear. You know, different people, different eyes. I've been doing it for 10 years. It's not scary. I have never been afraid, as I've never had fear. In the past, because I didn't have enough knowledge and I didn't know what consequences there might be. And then there was one particular moment when you understood what you could do and what it could be fraught with, and it was really scary. But now, when you know all basic aspects, if you work correctly, you understand that there are no risks.
Нанесли вторичную анестезию на
We're
глазик.
applying anesthesia on the second
Во-первых,
eye.
мы аккуратненько ее промакиваем.
The first one we're blotting carefully and we will modify our eyelash zone.
Ресничную зону. Когда наносим вторичную
When we
анестезию,
apply
она
the
может
secondary
немного
anesthesia,
подпекать.
it can have a burning sensation a little bit, so warn your client about it.
Я немножко
I'll
понижу
slightly
скорость,
lower the
чтобы
speed
было
to
чуть-чуть
4.8.
красивее. В целом, я сейчас буду
In
делать
general,
так же
I'm going
от
to do the same now,
центра,
namely I'll move to the
двигаться
second
к
corner from the
верхнему
center,
наполняя свою
filling the lash line
ресничную
zone with
зону,
pigment,
пигментом, и чтобы
and to
она была
make it as
максимально
dark
темной.
as possible. We have this pass filling with maximum color, that is to say we are moving to the middle of the eye. I'm working in this way, from the middle of an eye to the outer corner, and I try to fill the lash line zone with the maximum color. I'm stretching it, rearranging my fingers, and twisting the eyelid, actually the same as I did it before. And please, don't work in this way. You twist the eyelid in order to see clearly the zone you're working on. It should be in front of you in order to see clearly what you're dyeing, where you're dyeing, and you see the location of a lower eyelid. Guys, you cannot imagine how many people texted me that they worked with the upper eyelid and there were some dots on the lower one afterwards. Certainly they didn't dye it on purpose, but they could accidentally get the lower lash line while stretching the eyelid incorrectly. I soak the pigment a little and try to remove it to see what I have already dyed and what I haven't.
У меня уже, в принципе, хорошая
Actually, I already have good fullness in color.
Сейчас еще раз пройду
Now I'll move from the outer corner to the inner one once again
внутреннему, чтобы
in order to fill all the gaps,
и понаполнять.
and then my fullness will be okay.
То же самое
I do the same from the outer corner with a little circular motion without leaving skin. Why circular motion? We have bulges in the area of the cilia where their growth begins. That is to say, the zone is rough and the skin and the surface are not smooth. And we should dye everything well between them. And you can memorize one rule. For example, if you choose any zone from the bottom row, dye everything to the top row, stroke to stroke. Then you dye it back to the top without leaving skin, and then to the bottom row. Namely, you have already moved through the same zone twice, and then you stay here again doing circular motion. And after that you'll get the most productive dye of all zones. As I'm on the zones that are quite rough. That's why it's better there to work out with points, as the needle sometimes doesn't get there or slips on a bump, on the bulge, or conversely, on the hollow, and it could underdo a pigment. That's why, if you remember the rule considering these passes on one section at a time, believe me, that your productivity will be a lot higher. You shouldn't be lazy or in a hurry, but just sit and meditate. Actually, the lash line seems to be little, but sometimes it is hard to work out, and you spend more time on it than on eyebrows. In general, if you know all possible nuances and how to cope with them, then the work considering the lash line will be quick. You can cope with it from 30 minutes to 1 hour without any problems. Don't forget about the stretch and about the angle of 90 degrees. That is to say, if you see that the flatness is changing, then change the position of your hand. Your hand should be fixed on something. That is, I'm leaning on the couch. If there's no place to lean on, then hold your hands close to you, as they shouldn't dangle in the air in no case. You must have a clear fixation, and you shouldn't have any trembling in hands because you won't have a uniform movement of the apparatus, the needle, the hand. I've lowered the speed because I'm moving quite slowly, and now I have 4.8 on the needle. But guys, the link to the video will be in the profile bio. It's about how to adjust the speed of your machine to your hand. Please check your speed and don't ask what speed I have. Just review this video and think a little how to adjust exactly your device to your hand and your block, as the voltage also depends on the block. Different blocks, different hands, and different devices have different voltages. Please, don't be lazy, as we are doing it for you for free, so just learn the information. Now I want to rinse out a little and have a look. Well, that's pretty cool. Now we are working till the corner, applying anesthesia, and next pass I'll just blend it and we'll finish, I think. See how great everything is? Wash well between lashes, as the paint often clogs, and many people think that it is stained. And then, when the client washes herself a couple of times, this paint is washed away from her and nothing is left. You see, I've washed everything and I have the missed spots like this here. All these blank spaces must be dyed, because if to leave it in this way, it will give you gaps after healing, but it won't give you a beautiful dense black lash line. I don't outline a corner. I don't do it as I told you previously in 3 stages. I'm just slightly spraying. As you see, I'm coloring it a little bit so that it is as light and airy as possible by making a stroke rather on myself, leaving the skin to avoid compacting the corner. And then everything will look beautiful. I'm looking at small gaps, and I will literally dot them and apply sustain. Well, the second pass is finished, and now we will soothe the eye with sustain. And we are going to do the same on the second eye. I've slightly tucked the eyelid with a micro brush, and then we apply sustain carefully. According to the same principle, I'm moving here from the middle of the eye to the outwards. I'm moving to the outer corner up, then down. I have come down with circular motions and then up. And so we are finishing by coming to the end of the outer corner with circular motions. Guys, something that I'm showing is not a panacea. The main concepts and principles of a lash line are that everything shouldn't be done very fast. Everything should be done with small strokes. And the way you'll dye from the middle of the eye or from the beginning to the end of the eye doesn't influence efficiency. This way is just more convenient for me. It's not a technique, it's nothing. Namely, it doesn't influence anything. Other things influence. I'm telling you once again that these are a good stretching, the angle must be 90 degrees, and we're going ahead with small movements. Not strokes, but small movements. And we are not in a hurry, as well as if we are stuck a little in one place. And these principles give us a beautiful, efficient lash line, which will be filled up in 3 passes. Turn the head of a client to make it comfortable for you. A head spins, therefore there's nothing bad if you twist it a little. And don't forget about that. You don't have to reach for the zone, but simply adjust the zone to yourself. Now I'll rinse everything out and see if everything is well dyed. After rinsing everything out, blot your eye if it is a little wet, as it should be dry. Don't work on a wet surface, as the pigment will spread everywhere. Well, I've actually dyed, and you see that I've got a small missed spot here. Is it clear to see this blank space? Here there's a small gap, and here we've also got some small gaps. I'll go through one more time, and I will just close these gaps, and of course I'm thickening a lash line itself. I'll just linger a little longer on gaps. Let's go! Don't forget to rearrange your fingers in the area you're dyeing, as this is very important. No stretching, no beautiful coloring. And you should also understand that there's a skin zone. It's not even a cartilage. This zone is not like the one near eyebrows. It means that it's thicker. Namely, we are dyeing dense skin with small strokes. And why not a quick stroke? If we work with a quick stroke, you'll have more trauma, more swelling, and less pigment insertion. And we should move slowly and as efficiently as possible. So we take our time. I've washed, blotted and dried everything. And then I'm moving on to the nose. In this zone, there's a capillary, that's why I'll be very careful by pressing gently, barely touching, so as not to injure accidentally. If you got a pigment in the vessel, and while working you can see how it ran along the vessel, don't be alarmed. Take a cotton swab and start pushing it out from the vessel to the ciliary edge. It's almost likely that it will disperse and come out. The main thing is that the pigment shouldn't be left in the vessel. It should come out of the vessel. I'll show you how to do it after finishing to work with the zone near the nose. Remember that I do it with layering strokes, just fill in the area with color a little. My main task is to fill everything not tightly, but with the ear. It would be a light, gentle beginning of eyelashes. Now I'll run through everything, as there are some places without color. I'll fill these gaps like this. And the pass is over. If the pigment got into the vessel, or, for instance, it ran through the vessel, just look what you should do. You're pulling this zone, and by doing such movements, push it out from the vessel here to the cilia. I slightly wet the stick, as dry one will be unpleasant for the eyelid. So, you should move slowly and push everything out, and everything will be okay. We're applying some anesthesia. Now I'm twisting an eyelid a little bit with a brush, reaching the skin, so that the anesthesia doesn't lie on my eyelashes, but covers the skin. I don't take much of it, so that it doesn't flow over my eye, just a little. We're blotting the anesthesia on the second eye. Now I have the last pass, at least I want to finish with this pass. That's why I've been sitting in this position, and now I've moved a little, as if behind the head, because I will shade the lash line, as if to pull it to yourself, and pull back the eye and move a little, as if towards yourself. That's why it's more comfortable for me to work behind the head. I pull back the eyelid with my thumb, I pull it up a little with my forefinger, and with such movements, as if gaining a little color, and stretching it. My needle continues to stand at 90 degrees angle. I don't change the inclination. In this case, I'm going to check now, because I need to spray and dye the entire area. Here I have a dipped stick next to it. If I still have any gaps, I'll fill them. I'm working with such a stroke, stretching the lash line and making it fluffy. So, without being in a hurry, we are feeling our fluffiness. Today I took mast for the first time in a while, and even by the end of the procedure I forgot that I'm on it. I mainly work on a scorpion. Sometimes I take giant sun, mostly for shadows and some edge eyelids. But in most cases I use scorpion. Mast is not bad and it inserts well, and residue is good after it too. I don't know the model, guys. For me it's black and thick. In the end I'll show you how it looks. I'll take off the wrapping and show what it's like. We ordered it on AliExpress a long time ago.
девчонки у нас работали.
The girls were working on it for a very long period. It's a very budget device. Very budget, with good efficient work. If you're looking for something to start, you can take it. Mostly I'm working on ice with number 1, sometimes I can take number 3. It doesn't depend on anything, just on my mood. The thickness of the needle is also for the mood. Either 0.3 or 0.35. It differs. Now it's 0.3 we select in purple packs. We've been working with them for probably 3 or 4 months and I really like them. Even more than Quadron, as they are more budgetary. Yesterday I heard the news that Quadron will not produce brown cartridges anymore, but will only make Optima. And I should say that I don't like Optima at all. I have a couple of packs of Optima in my warehouse, but they are kind of sharp to me, and also stiff. And I don't like something that is stiff. And I don't like hard machines, hard needles. I always want some kind of softness that I would carefully insert. When it's very tough, it like tears, and perhaps pink is more profitable to produce because they are more expensive than brown ones. I pull the outer corner of the eye here. With this finger, I pull the skin out a little and make such an extension of the eyelashes. But if you have any doubts, try to draw it for yourself before doing something. But if there are no doubts, while opening an eye, you see the direction of the eyelashes. Just do the same as eyelash shadow. Don't make a clear line, but just an eyelash shadow, as if it falls on an eyelid. It will look very nice and harmonious, and it will visually lengthen the client's eye a little. In order to check your shadow, whether everything's dyed, I can as if step onto the eyelashes with a finger, and I pull off the eyelid to see where I have some underpainted areas. They are usually local, indeed from the eyelashes where the transition is, from dark to medium and light. In order to avoid a sharp drop, it's better to make a small transition, so that it gently disperses as an ingredient. I'm satisfied with the density of the lash line, I'm satisfied with the shadow, and what I love the most, and always do it with the final touch, and I find it very beautiful. I'm going to tell you my secret. I'm twisting an eyelid in this way. You see all these eyelashes, all the dots, because here I see as if not a dense point, and it's the bottom row where I join everything in one line. It seems to me that it looks very beautiful when everything's connected with one line. It turns out so graphically, this eyelash row exactly, and you don't understand why. Everything's not clear to see, but it puts everything together, namely the eyelashes and your whole picture, which you painted into a single unit. It seems to me that without this it would be completely different. Here it's straight and small, so that all the points are on the same line. But guys, if you have kind of eyelash growing a bit lower, don't paint here. You take your thickest row below and gather it in one line, and not for this eyelash.
Смотрите, как круто. Вот оно все собралось.
Look how cool it looks. Here, it's all gathered in one line and generally looks different. It seems like everything sets such a gradient tone from the thickest line to the light, airy shadow. I like it very much. We have shot two eyes on purpose to see the difference between finished and unfinished versions. In the unfinished version, it looks a little ragged, as there's no whole picture. That's why I'm going to correct it now, in the same way as we did there, with quietly gaining movements and gaining shading. The only thing which differs, that I was working there as if from behind the head, and was shading towards myself. Here I'm working a little from here, and shading in this direction. If it's uncomfortable for you, you can shade this way with a stroke towards the lash line. This capillary is slightly inflamed because it was just close and I touched it accidentally while working. But that's alright. 2-3 days and it will heal. There's only a slight redness.
Растягиваем нашу ресничку, распушиваем.
We are stretching our lash line and fluffing it up. Add shadows to the zones where you see lack of them. I don't return many times to such areas where there is something like a vessel. And here I'm working so slowly, as there's an inflamed capillary, and I don't want to get into it. That's why little by little I'm working around. And try not just to stretch the lash line, but try to make such a small transition, especially where you're further from the narrow. Here I fluff it up just a little bit. There has already been an increase from the middle of the eye, so try to make a start. There should be a dense part, middle one, and then it's light. Consequently, it will look softer and not just a break from dark to light on top, so that it's in some kind of color transition. And you simply gain it due to the density. You see that here I'm working with a dense stroke towards myself, and here I've rearranged and it's more convenient for me to work alone. In fact, it doesn't matter what stroke you're working with. If it's quite curly, then do it curly. If these are strokes towards yourself, then do strokes towards yourself. It doesn't matter at all. The most important thing is the result. There's no correct technique, and no magical curl. There's only one rule you shouldn't break, and of course the final result, which should please you and your client. That's it.
Вот и все.
These are all the rules,
Вот и все.
and that's the whole technique.
Конечно, базовым является
Certainly,
штрих на
the
себя,
basic
и лучше
stroke is
начинать
the
именно с
one
такого
towards
штриха.
yourself, and it's better to start with this kind of stroke, as it's simpler to feel the skin, the needle, the device, and finally to experience your hand. And when you understand your skin, then you understand what you're doing with it, how deep you're working, how to place the needle and the device in relation to the skin. You can do experiments with curly lines, circles, and so on. There are lots of techniques. To be more precise, there's only one technique and there are lots of names. But until you feel the skin, don't experiment too much. Now we are lining up the middle line. There is a dark one, but I need medium, and then I'll raise it to completely light and stretch it out. Likewise, we put it on here and do the stretching.
Do you know I'm looking and I can't help but smile? Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on.
You're always moving like this, and it seems that you've died so cool. And when you're wiping, there's a little smoke. But it's better because you have a chance not to mess up. And little by little, bring everything to what you need. Well, we're finishing a lash line on this eye. I'm joining all the dots along the bottom row into a single line.
I'm looking with you, everything's complete. Do you know how much I love you? I put your favorite song on just to wake you up. When I dance around, I can't help but feeling just loving.
I don't gather the very beginning in a line, the fluffiness remains there. That's all, and we are washing our eyes.
If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would?
After the procedure, the eyes of your clients may be slightly frozen and heavy. Notify your clients that it'll be over in an hour or an hour and a half or even 2. It depends. The day after the procedure, you're most likely to have swelling in the morning. Even if your eyes are not swollen now, it's most likely that the next day they will be swollen. It responds to the injury. In addition, we lie and sleep horizontally. Accordingly, we have an inflow of liquids here. If the client needs to go somewhere to work, warn her to get up 1 hour earlier, so that it diverges, a little outflow of lymph and fluid goes away, and the eyes calm down. There will be less swelling, and usually everything goes away before noon the next day. But you should definitely warn, because the girl may be scared in the morning. Therefore, you should anticipate that some black things can gather in the corners. This is the paint that may come out a little. We are also not afraid of this, as everything is fine. I don't prescribe any care as such. I only tell you that the less you get inside, the better it is. Try not to touch and rub your eyes. I think there won't be any special desire to do it. Don't dye them with mascara for about a week. If the scabs come off, then they should come off on their own, don't help them. If the scabs has already moved away and lies on the eyelashes, then it can be neatly removed with your fingers. But don't rip it if it hasn't moved away yet.
When I see you, my heart starts racing, but I don't know if I like this chasing and playing and waiting around. It's a shame that my hands start shaking all of the time when you're around me. But this time, girl, I know what's bothering me. I need somebody to love. Oh, nah, 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 nah. Don't you see what's wrong with me? I need somebody to love. Oh, oh, nah, nah. I don't know what I could say to convince you to hang around.
We have finished the procedure on the area between the lashes, fluffy lash line. I was working with the apparatus of Must, and I promised you to show how it looks like, as I don't know the model, to be honest. We are throwing the cartridge into special containers. Like this, we collect them. Then the service, which takes these containers and utilizes them, comes to us. They utilize them with the help of burning. Here we also take everything apart and throw everything away. I throw the caps usually into a glove and tie it so that the remains of the pigment don't spread over the bucket. As for Must, this is how this device looks. It's not light, namely it's quite heavy, but generally working on it is a matter of habit. Adjusting the needle depth is also a very common issue. When you insert the cartridge, you adjust the needle, namely how far it sticks out, with the machine turned on. That is to say, you turn it on, you connect it to the power supply, turn on the power supply and hold this part here. And you twist this part, and due to this you adjust the depth of your needle. When you put the cartridge here, I'll show you now. Here I have a training one. When you put the cartridge, you must have a system on any cartridge like Quadron, V-Select and or Cheyenne click-clack system. That is, you put it on, squeeze it and scroll it. That is, it must stand tight, and when you turn it on, it shouldn't fly out. Then you turn on the block, and here you are holding the lower part. And as for the top, you are twisting it, and thus you can adjust the needle depth. The touch-up of the lash line is not a very common procedure in comparison with eyebrows or lips. It seems to me that about 30% of clients come to me for this procedure. The pigment takes root quite well, because we put it tightly there. The only thing is that if it's close to the mucous membrane of the eyelid, the eye itself is often watery. Then the lash line may fall out a little, somewhere in pieces, and a gap will appear. In this case, it is corrected. Also, if it's not enough and you want to add thickness or saturation, the correction procedure is also carried out. The touch-up in our studio is carried out not earlier than in a month and not later than 3 months. During this period, the client makes an appointment at any convenient time, then comes and we carry out the touch-up procedure. Well, that's all in general. I hope this video was helpful to you. I would appreciate your comments. Don't forget to give it the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. I'll be glad to meet you again.